Well, let's continue. Yes, I know. At least they're not heavily surrounded and they were able to retreat. Good. Well, it's not an entirely bad idea to attack the AA with your bombers if you have nothing else to do, but I would have just tried to avoid it. That may be a bit of a problem there. Why didn't you retreat back up to here? Because you're going to die now. Uh-oh, what do we have here? Some Romanian tanks. Are these FTs? Or R-35s maybe? Okay, what are these? Yeah, R-35s. Romania did buy some of the Renaults in the interwar era, and I think maybe the Germans even gave them a few later on. Okay, well, we're closing in up here on our early objective, but I think we're going to take this town first. So, let's move you up. You get to shoot at the fighters and just stay right where you are. So you're not really hurting them. Fine. Yep, like I say, coming in on fumes. But they did their mission. Now, let's see if we can get the Hurricane 2 launched. And we also launched... No. Didn't I... Well, we'll reinforce you now. Okay, well... Maybe I should have used them down here, but well, the Focke-Berlin is out of range. Yeah, that probably would have been a good idea. And let's see what we can do with this. There we go. Perfect. Engineers got to town. Very good, infantry tanks. You're doing what you're supposed to. Reporting the infantry attack. Now here, see what we can do to these stugs. Yeah, I say we're just going to keep entrenching in along there. Very good. Okay. Nope, so we're going to stay on the defensive now. Oh, well, we can artillery somebody here. That would be useful, I think. Good. Your escort is abandoning you. We're going to go after Feodosia. Okay, let's end the turn here. Yes, run away, run away. That's the best plan at this moment. Okay. Let's see what we can do with all of this. Hello, Drogodines. How you doing? I'm sure I'm butchering that, but how you doing today? And yes, we are tanking it up here a bit. Let's use long-range fire from there. They're going to close infantry assault it. We'll give Zhukov some reinforcements. Okay, now that we have ground them down a bit, let's attack with the infantry. Those Panzer IIs are hurting. Panzer II, an interesting tank. I would say it was mostly set up to being a training vehicle, as it were. Oh, you moved to there, did you? Which means we will bump into you, damn. But not just a training vehicle like the Panzer I, in my opinion, was very much mobile target for practice. No, I would disagree. The Panzer, well, before the Panzer I even comes up, there's sort of the agricultural tractor, which is more or less just, and I say more or less, but just an engine, drivetrain, and tracks for what will become a Panzer I, in which there is no even, upper tank body. I mean, everybody is driving in the open. Does sort of vaguely look like an agricultural tractor. Those are used for quite some time, I know, as just training vehicles, and obviously there's no weapons attached to them. The Panzer Is, they're primarily a training vehicle, while they were figuring out what a tank should be. They had gotten down the idea that there should be a turret on it and other things, but that just basically where the Panzer II really, and they came into the late in the war with an upgraded engine one, the Lynx or the Loesch version of the Panzer II L model with a very fast engine. And what it does make is a rather good reconnaissance vehicle. And so if you're looking at it as a tank, no, but as a well, I guess we don't have much of a choice. We'll bump into that, but we're not going to go into the forest. So I like the Panzer II for what it was, in that it's a light armor vehicle. Okay. Well, the half-tracks for reconnaissance. They were definitely there and used as reconnaissance vehicles. I keep the short one. I think it's the 250. I keep mixing up which one's the 250 and the 251. One of them is the longer one. I think it's the 250 is the short one. They were used, some had just even a sort of a little 20 millimeter turret on them, just for reconnaissance. Others are sort of reconnaissance companies that carry infantry. So it's definitely a recon type unit, but it is also sort of a fighting infantry. Oh yeah, so many models of those things. But those vehicles, those half-tracks, are not nearly as cross-country terrain effective mobile units as, say, a tank would be, a Panzer II. So a Panzer II will go across much more terrain types quickly, more maneuverably than your half-tracks. The 8-rad armored cars have some benefit, definitely in the speed range. I think they even have a tighter turning radius because they're, four-wheel turning. It's not just the front wheels that turn, so they can turn very quickly. Because the half-tracks can't quite do, spin in place kind of thing. So, but with the Russian mud and whatnot, sort of balances out that the half-tracks can get through the mud and snow better than the armored cars. So they're sort of winning and losing between the 8-rads and the half-tracks. And so I look at the half-tracks, the small ones, as a sort of a good reconnaissance slash exploitation infantry type units, because they would have, some would have mortars in them, the short 75 millimeter guns, the L-24s, or the 37 millimeter guns, which are no longer going to penetrate anything like a T-34 as an anti-tank weapon, but would definitely penetrate the T-26s or things like the T-60s, which are the later light tanks. Hey, what's so? How you doing? And so, for its uses, the little Pak 36 guns mounted on things, and they do have a 37 millimeter, high explosive round. So those are all sort of light fighting vehicles, engaging other enemy half-tracks, engaging things like the BA-10s. And that's sort of where I would want to use them more and produce the Panzer II. See, the Panzer II And there's sort of two different versions of the tracks. I sort of favor the early spring-leaf mount type ones. They did have the sort of interleaved wheels that, yeah, it's sort of better, but they build up, dirt builds up mud, Soviet mud can jam them up. So they're more maintenance intensive. But you got to realize, so okay, you have the Panzer 1 or Panzer 2, and you can keep making them for reconnaissance. They stop at some point, obviously, and then later build the Loesch version. But you keep in production, which is really sort of also their beauty, the Marder 2s and the Wasps, the 105 millimeter, artillery pieces, tracked artillery pieces. So they continue to have a good purpose up until the end of the war. That's sort of why some of the stuff I like about the Panzer II. So yeah, if you're looking at them as tanks, which they were definitely used for in Poland, in France, and in the early stages of the invasion of the Soviet Union, yeah, they start to become very limited vehicles. But if you look at them as a reconnaissance vehicle, it's like, I'm driving around the battlefield looking out with binoculars, I see enemy tanks, I report them, and I run away from the enemy tanks, something like KVs. We know Soviet gunnery wasn't all that great, so that unless you're surprised at close range, you get ambushed or whatever, you can probably run away from any KVs you see before they will do a lot of damage to you in a Panzer, or group of Panzer IIs, a Zug, a platoon, whatever you want to call it, could probably run away from them, but report their location, and then you bring up the long barrel Stugs or whatever, and work as, or even things like the Martyrs, work as tank destroyers to take them out once they're a known location. So that's sort of what I like about the Panzer IIs, and there's no obsolete weapons. There's no useless weapons. So even the pike has its uses. It's just that you have to tailor the type of weapon to the terrain, the environment that you're operating in. And that's just how I look at it. It shows both the desperation Germany's in and the great inventiveness the Germans showed. Things like the Martyrs. Martyrs 2s and 3s, basically. In that they take... they continue to make useful the, engine production, the drivetrain, the track production, the basic hull production, which is an important thing, and make them useful for things like the Panzer IIs and Panzer 38Ts up until the end of the war. And so they're really smart in that, but it also shows their desperation in that they've got to keep these, outdated or less useful designs in production, where the Americans can convert over and even switch over, I think, if I'm not mistaken, away from the Lee/Grant hulls and engine setups to more of a Sherman type setup to do the Priests, the 105 millimeter self-propelled howitzers, and just sort of like, oh yeah, we've replaced all of our tanks that we had with newer Shermans, and now we're going to send used but no longer necessary Shermans back to America because, hey, they haven't been killed, so they're still very useful and functional, but it's more of a limitation on the numbers of men that we can both train, equip, and supply, which is a critical element for the Americans overseas, versus the production levels. We can produce more tanks than we can man. And so that is, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. As much as I don't like, they did a job. They got upgraded and won the Eastern Front. Yes. You see, and I'm very much for the idea that the best tank for the Soviets is the T-34 because it got the job done for the Eastern Front. It was very effective but crude, sort of like the AK, very effective but crude. The Sherman is the best thing for the Americans in all of its versions as it gets, upgunned and whatnot, because it is one of the most reliable vehicles, and easy to maintain vehicles. And so if you're having your supply chain coming from America and going to, Burma jungle, going to some Pacific island, going to the Soviet East Front, though they use more of the Shermans as training vehicles. Soviets really liked them as training vehicles because they would, drive time and little maintenance. They would train them up on Shermans and then put them in T-34s to go into the fight. So maintaining, sending spare parts and whatnot to the Soviet Union on the Italian front, the Western front, wherever. So you have your supply chain all the way around the globe, literally, for the Shermans, that no other tank in the war can really do that as well as the Shermans can. And then something like the Panzer IV for the Germans, in that it starts the war and it ends the war still as an effective tank. Yeah, you compare a T-34-85 to a Panzer IV with the L-48 gun barrel on it. Yeah, the T-34-85 is going to come in as a better vehicle, but the 75 millimeter gun can still knock out the T-34 in the frontal armor if you hit it on the right spots. And of course you can make things like they did make Stug 4s. Most of them were on the Panzer 3 hulls, Stug 3s like this, but they did, because one of the Stug factories gets bombed and they want more Stugs, and they're simple and easy to make. They start just literally sticking the Stug tops on the Panzer IV hulls, as well as making the Jag Panzer IVs as well on them in several different versions. So that is sort of the beauty in that vehicle, whether in the tank form or some of the other support gun forms, is very useful throughout the war without being too complicated in manufacture. So it is the best tank for Germany in the war. Yeah, later in the war, you because they're facing heavier and heavier things, you need to design something like the Panther, and the Panther gets better as time goes on. So it is still a maintenance headache, but not nearly as bad as we're talking about the Kursk days when it was just god awful. So I forget how many don't even make it to the front lines because of just literally maintenance problems. And so I really think that those are the right choices for each of the nations. And whatever may be, quote unquote, better in a tank on tank battle, we have to look at it at an army-wide viewpoint for all of that. Okay, well, I want to thank you all for being here. We've sort of run out of time. We will be continuing this in a later playthrough. So if you haven't already, please follow us here on Twitch, or if you're watching on YouTube or one of the other places we're streaming to, you can hit subscribe there. And I've just posted my link to my Twitch channel. You can follow over there. I normally stream on Saturdays and Sundays, but also there's a link there to my YouTube channel in which you will be seeing, you just scroll down on that page, more videos, including I'm going to be posting, if you didn't catch all of this up in segments over on my YouTube channel, as well as many other great Slytherin games are posted over there, so you guys can check them out. And it always, we love building the community here, and that's very much part of what we're doing, but we're also presenting the games so you can make an informed choice as to what you buy. It's no longer look at the sexy box cover and buy that. You get to actually see how the game goes, and see if it's something that's worth your money. So thanks everyone. So yeah, it's next week I think I'm streaming this continually, but I'm saying I know it's definitely going to be one time or another. So we'll be continuing this. So thanks everyone. See you next time.